everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to our COVID concert. We are really excited to be with you and to be able to play and to prove that even though we are apart, the music never stops. We are also really grateful for the technology that makes this possible. We're going to start a little differently. I first of all want to thank you so much for getting on and for voting, because that made it really fun for us to see what you would decide we would play. So that's going to be really fun for us. So our first number is this. We're going to run this a little bit different and start with a slow piece because that was what you chose. And I really love the meditation from the opera Thais because to me it very much represents facing challenges, and that is very much what we're all doing right now. And in the moment in the opera Thais, in the moment that the meditation is played, it's right after a religious monk has approached the very beautiful and rich escort and asked her to leave her luxurious life for a different one, for a much better one of purity. And she's having this moment of trying to decide what she's going to do because she was very comfortable in her life before. And that's very much how I feel right now. I feel like I am in unprecedented territory being cooped up in my house, and that we are forging new territory. So I'd like to challenge you to think about your own personal challenges as we play for you the meditation from Thais. you so much for choosing that one. That's definitely one of my favorites as well. I'm really excited about our next piece, and clearly you were too. This was one of our top choices during the entire week, the Brahms Intermezzo. This is a real favorite of mine because my mom has been playing it my whole life, and I remember as a little girl laying under the piano with my dad and listening to her play it. And it also is very nostalgic for me. It reminds me of times when I was more innocent and things were simpler, and it's definitely a very reflective piece. But I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it. Why did you choose the Brahms?
Well, it is one of those lifetime pieces. It's one of the pieces that you can study as a child or teenager and then never feel like it's really mastered and keep revisiting over and over. It's complex music, but also really beautiful. Represents so many of the things that Brahms is great at. And you and I have done a lot of Brahms together. We've done Brahms sonatas, we've done some Brahms chamber music together. You've played a lot of Brahms symphonies, and this work is very symphonic in a way. It's like a small piece, a little symphony for the piano, but he was also great at miniatures, and this is one of those.
So what is it that you love about the Brahms?
The melodies are gorgeous, so it's really tuneful, but I like the complexity too. Also, it's complex and very thick music, and so for that reason, not everybody loves playing it because there's just so much going on all the time, and a lot of different things that you could focus on as a pianist. And I get to play on my own instrument, which is really fun. So thank you for joining us in my living room. So I don't get to take this everywhere I go. So now I'm home with my Steinway. I'm really grateful for that. But the rhythms make Brahms really interesting too. He chooses some things to superimpose that give us some of that thick texture that we might get in a symphony. But he'll take a beat and divide it in two. And so for us musicians, these are eighth notes, and musical young students know what an eighth note is, where you divide something into two halves, you divide a beat. And that would be like a two-syllable word, like the word apple. So we could say apple, apple, or we could divide that same beat into three pieces, and we would get a three-syllable word, like a blueberry. And that could be divided evenly over many beats, blueberry, blueberry, and we could switch back and forth between blueberries and apples. But what Brahms does that's interesting is he mashes them together.
He actually puts them on top of each other?
Yes.
But I thought that twos and threes, like if you think about a fraction, like a half is not the same as a third. So how does he do that?
Right. So it's pretty genius actually, and complex. A lot of composers do it, but he does it particularly well, and it's kind of one of his signature fingerprints. So in this piece, it happens a lot. But let's say this was an apple. He has this melody on top that's divided in two into, it's like an apple, apple pie. And then at the same time, there are blueberries going on in the other hand. So we have like a blueberry, it's like a blueberry pie. Right, yeah. So those rhythms, when they come together, you can choose to focus on one or the other, and it's a totally different sound. So I'm going to focus on the apples for a while. And now I'll focus on the blueberries. So we get to do those together.
So what are you supposed to do? Like, does Brahms tell you what to do, or do you get to decide?
That's a really great question, because there are many choices. There are so many different ways to go with this piece. You can choose to focus on just the top melody, which is sort of the more simplistic way to do it, and just treat all the inner stuff as harmonies and focus on the bass once in a while. Or you can try to bring out some of that complexity on the inner voices and maybe sacrifice one of the other melodies. But it's a constant judgment call, which is why it's an interesting study of a lifetime to decide. So one of the cool things about this piece, and one of the reasons I chose it, is that it takes a section and where all the blueberries and apples come together, and it repeats that section exactly. So though that 8 measures, I think, comes around twice. It repeats it right in the middle of the piece. And so the way I do it, and a lot of pianists, is bring out the apples the first time and the blueberries the second time. So
duplets and then the triplets.
Yeah, the 2s and then the 3s. So you'll be able to hear as a listener, if you're focused on that, how that how that changes the sound by focusing on one voice or the other. And then right in the middle is a particularly beautiful spot, I think, where he takes everything that is going on and just stops and has this gorgeous stillness, almost like a hymn, and all of the voices come together, and then everything does line up, and we don't have a lot of the movement and the complexity. And
a moment of peace.
Total peace right in the middle of turbulence. So I felt like that was particularly appropriate right now to give us that feeling of inner peace, or maybe help us focus on the things that can bring us peace. So
I need to hear it. so much. Thank you for playing that. Thank you for choosing it.
I think I was supposed to ask you a question now.
Yep.
Okay. So,
Doing a vibe with me now.
yeah, I remember that. Took me a minute, but I was getting pretty comfortable in my abode.
Well, you do get so wrapped up in what you're doing that it's
Yep.
very hard to move
It's
on
hard
in
to,
that moment.
you do have to stay in the moment. It's hard to think of what comes next. But there is a next. Yeah, fortunately for you, you get to hear Shawnee again. And one of the hymns that's been resonating with both of us is this idea of abiding and abiding. We're spending a lot of time in our abodes. We're doing a lot of abiding, staying home. But this hymn seemed to really touch a chord with you. What made you choose this one?
Well, I think a lot of people are feeling really lonely right now, and I think they wish that when they do get those few human interactions that they could stay just a little longer, to abide a little longer, and that they really yearn for that physical presence, but also for a spiritual presence to kind of help sustain us through this time. And as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I have a lot of opportunities to play in church. And so I'm constantly shuffling through different things that I can play that I really like and that I find appropriate. And this is one of my favorites because I really love, first of all, the MacDonald Nelson arrangements, and these have become some of my standard go-tos. But the lyrics, I feel, are especially appropriate right now when I think about abide with me, please stay with me, 'tis eventide. Like, the shadows of the evening are falling, the night is coming on. Like, this is what we're feeling right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. It's this huge wave of uncertainty, and it's almost just dizzying. And I feel that feeling of the lyrics of the chorus, stay with me. Whatever it is that you turn to for strength, please stay with me. That's what I need right now. And so with that, this is Abide with Me, 'tis eventide. thank you very much for choosing that one. That means a lot to me, and I was grateful to play it. And I want to just thank you again for voting. That made it really fun for us to watch all week as we were seeing which would rise to the top and which ones were being a little bit fought over as far as which they liked better. And without a question, the one that rose to the top and was by far the top for most of the week was Be Still My Soul. And I'm really looking forward to hearing that because there's something very special about this arrangement. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I don't know if people knew what they were getting into when they voted for this one because it's an arrangement, and the hymn we just played was another composer's arrangement of something that was out of not just the hymnal that we're familiar with, but that many faiths use. And this is also something that started as an actual legitimate classical piece by Jean Sibelius. The middle part of Finlandia that then was sort of incorporated into a Christian hymn. Text was added and it became a hymn that we sing now. So I have been doing some of these for a while, but I've been taking hymns and combining them with classical pieces. So I'm not great at coming up with things on my own, but I'm really good at stealing other people's things and stealing other ideas. So I'm stealing from Chopin now and from Sibelius, and who originally wrote the tune, and then making my own arrangement and sticking it inside of a Chopin etude. So a couple of things about this that make it tricky for me. One is that an etude is by definition a difficult piece and an exercise, and Chopin took etudes and kind of made a whole new world out of etudes when he turned them into concert pieces, and they were supposed to take a technical challenge and really do it in as many ways as possible to get the pianist to learn how to do it well.
But of course we know Chopin, he can't do anything without doing it beautifully, right?
Right,
so.
Yeah. So the etude itself turned into a concert piece, and he wrote 2 sets of these, and they've now become kind of the pinnacle of technical achievement to be able to play these etudes in concert. So they're really not things that you use to warm up. They're things that you have to be really great at playing to be able to play them.
Because an etude normally, in musical terms, would be a warm-up, right?
Right.
But
I mean, it means
an
exercise.
Yeah.
So there's this exercise that Chopin turned into a really beautiful but technically tricky piece. And so I imposed on top of that some of the tunes from this Sibelius hymn, which is now part of our hymn canon.
What was it that inspired you to first do this? Because I know you've been doing this for several years now.
It's just kind of a nice way for me to combine 2 of the worlds I live in with my faith and my music, to take those 2 things together and to try to find something that represented both of those things. And yeah, so it's kind of fun to do. And when you take text from a hymn and you put it to new accompaniment, then it sort of wakes people up. So this hopefully will help. For those of you who know the words to this, those words of Be Still My Soul will resonate in a different way. This text also talks about disappointment and fear being gone and joy being restored. So I like that. I like the hopefulness of the text in this hymn too.
Very appropriate. so much for that. I really feel like this is one of your gifts, and every time I hear you do a new one, it just brings me to a whole new level of peace, and I hear the lyrics and this hymn is such a familiar one to me, and I've heard it so many times, but I hear the words almost as if for the first time when I hear you insert those new harmonies underneath it, and I really appreciate you bringing that to our selection today.
Thank you for choosing it. It gave me a new challenge, so I was happy for that, and happy to play here with Shawnee. So for our last selection, this is something that got almost edged out by another piece.
Another popular one.
Another really popular one. Yeah, so they were neck and neck, and at some point we had to just make a decision, and they were within one vote of each other. So we decided to end with this because it's so hopeful, and we really love the message of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. In just going back over the history of this tune, it has lived on as maybe one of the best known American song tunes. And when Harold Arlen was writing this for the movie, he actually did write it for Wizard of Oz. It didn't exist before Dorothy. And so he wrote it specifically for Judy Garland to sing at this particular moment. But if you remember in the film, this is a very gray period. Like we associate it with rainbows and butterflies and birds and all of those things, but this was a gray time for her, and a stormy time and an uncertain time, and and Harold Arlen felt that she needed something hopeful in the tune and a really beautiful arching melodic line, and so it captures hope, I think. So as we conclude with this, we also want to give you our great thanks, of course, for being with us and for allowing music to bridge the gap, but we also have a challenge for you too in taking some hope to someone who might feel hopeless right now. So we have a lot of people doing some heroic things, some really amazing things, some amazing healthcare workers out there. And so we want to give a shout out to them, but also some unsung heroes. So we want to leave you with the challenge to give some hope, to call someone you haven't talked to for a while, to mend a broken relationship, to give light to someone who might be feeling darkness.